Okay, so let's look at this world. Let's look at Act 1. Okay, so we're going to start with, these are the main steps. Act 1 is going to be an introduction and a setup of the story. So whatever arc there's going to be, any A to B story, we got to set up the A. It's amazing how much people can learn to hate characters while they're just being set up. I remember going to a movie, to Doctor Strange with a girlfriend who's like, I hate this character. And it was the setup of the character to transform. Of course we hate it. We often set up exactly what needs to flip. So we're going to have a lot of setting up, set up what's going to flip. If you want the world, you want to show us what the world's like when it's fixed, start with it. Not when it's totally broken, but when it thinks it's great, but it hasn't fixed this problem. So start with the setup, the world that's going to change, set up the character that's going to change. Okay, this is the separation from the world that we're in, right? So we got to separate from the Shire, separate from our comfort zone, separate from the person we were before we went on the journey. We're called to do so. We're called into the other world, called into growth, called into transformation. And this is a calling, a separation from home. So we're going to now look at a few key beats, key steps in this journey. We start with the okay. So we start with the status quo. We set up, this is not, so this Act 1, all of Act 1 is on the left. Introduce, separate, call from home, right? All of Act 1. But now let's look at the key beats. When it's broken up into beats, and these are kind of looser, do all these things that Act 1 needs to do. But here's how it tends to go. We tend to set up the normal world, set up the status quo. The opening sequence is either an opening, action sequence, but normally we're looking also for some type of introduction to what the world is now. What is normal? What is the status quo? Set it up so that we can change it and show us the problem. So if you set up the status quo with the problem embedded, we get it. We're like, you don't even have to have the inciting incident. We know what needs to happen because we see the problem in the world. We see this character has to grow. Then there's going to be some type of inciting incident, call to adventure, increased awareness, some type of disruption, this big disruption event that's going to shake us loose from the status quo and bring us into contemplation of, should I go on this journey? Should I not go on this journey? And this is the refusal of the call, some different language for it, the denial of the incident, refusal of the call, resistance to change, repression. This is when we're repressing what we've learned. We're repressing this call to adventure. No, I didn't hear that kind of thing. And this is when we're dealing with our fear. And the fear we have about going on the journey is an expression of our insecurities. Our refusal of the call is an expression of our insecurity often. But when we show a character afraid to go, it shows the audience is now realizing how scary this journey is. The stakes are expressed by the fear. But then we're going to have to go. We're going to have to decide to go, accept the journey. So this is going to either be done with some type of synchronicity or a sign. Okay, some divine sign or some overcoming, some point of no return. Maybe our world's blown up behind us and we have to go. Or maybe we meet some type of supernatural mentor or receive some aid. It's Athena is where we get the word mentor. She was the mentor for Telemachus and the Odyssey. Or we meet Gandalf, or we meet Morpheus, or we meet Obi-Wan. We meet somebody who, or Hagrid. We meet somebody who gives us a sense of confidence that we can do it. So we're going to go from being in the status quo, being disrupted from the status quo, and feeling called to go, but then having the sense of resistance and refusal. I don't know about that, but then we got to decide we're going to go. We got to have this overcoming. And that's going to often have some, we get some magic arrows, magic shoes, lightsaber, and meet a mentor, or the world's blown up behind us and we got to go. And then we're going to cross the threshold. And this is when we go down the rabbit hole, through the wardrobe, through the looking glass, into the phone, down the into the land of the dead. It doesn't, whatever it is, we're crossing. And this crossing is exciting. We'll show you some examples of that. So it's some of our favorite times in many stories. And this crossing of the threshold is going to be when we are kind of like, whether or not we like it, we want to or not, we are now committed to this journey. And this is what Sid Field calls Act 1, and it takes us into Act 2.